Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very eminent professional from Brussels, Belgium, Professor Dr. Emeritus Jean-Claude Burgelman. Jean-Claude, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Professor Burgelman is a director of the Frontiers Planet Prize, and he's an editor-in-chief of the Frontiers Policy Laboratory. So before we talk about open science and what you're doing, tell me about your own amazing journey.
Okay, thank you very much, and indeed, it's a pleasure to be here. So my journey is what it is, and afterwards it looks very logical. But as many things, it was actually also a little bit of luck involved. So I started as an academic at the University of Brussels. I made my PhD on telecommunications policy, and I worked as a professor in communication technology policy. By coincidence, more or less, I was invited to become a visiting scientist for the Joint Research Center, which is the research branch of the European Commission. And I went there in Sevilla, the south of Europe, for 1 year, and I stayed 10 years. So, so I became a manager there at the Joint Research Center, mainly working on the influence of new information technologies on all kinds of things. Amongst one was science, and it is that part that then brought me the impact of ICT on science and how it changes the world of science. That brought me to Brussels in the European Commission, where I started working on open science, open data, because all that has been facilitated by information technologies. And that's where I ended my career. In parallel, I stayed at the university, and but on a part-time basis. And when I ended my career at the university and at the European Commission, I started working not on a contract, not on a full employment basis, but as a consultant for Frontiers, an open science publishing company, and in particular Frontiers Research Foundation, which is the host of the Frontiers Planet Prize, which I'm directing now, and which I'm sure we will come back to later on in the discussion.
That, absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about what is open science and why is it important for the future of research and innovation?
Yeah, that's of course the top question. So open science, you can look at it in many ways, but the way I define it is very simple. It is science that is reusable. Because it allows you, by having at the maximum level, it allows you to consult the products of science article books, but also the data which lead to the science. They are openly available in a format that is consultable, meaning no paywalls, but also in a semantic organization whereby anyone can actually redo the experiment. So open science is science as it used to be, except that it is openly available to anyone without having to pay for it, that it is done in a way that I can work with it. So the format is a format that I can reuse as a scientist. And as a result of it, and that's why it is important for innovation, which I know it's a topic close to your heart, as a result of it, many more people can participate in the knowledge creation process, and the process itself goes much faster. So you don't have to wait until it is published. You don't have to wait until it is there is no longer a paywall. You don't have to wait for the data. You don't have to look for it at infinitum, because they are theoretically available.
And how would you say open science contributes to the democratization of knowledge?
Well, if you look, it is of course not a direct purpose, but indirectly it's the biggest spillover effect, because it allows, by having the results of science and the data that lead to the science, by having them available to anyone on condition of being a scientist, but also a lay person, by having them available at the lowest possible entry level, which is you don't have to pay for it, is the lowest possible entry level. By having realized that, it is the most efficient democratization of science that you can have. It doesn't mean that it is the same level of utilization that you can expect throughout the world, but because you need training, of course, you need time to be able to do something with it. But at least the bottleneck that you have to pay for it or that the data is not available is gone. And that in itself is a huge democratization.
Amazing. Thank you. Can you also, for my viewers and listeners, explain the concept of the European Open Science Cloud and
Yes.
what are its main objectives?
Well, the European Open Science Cloud was one of the 8 priorities which we launched in the European Commission in 2017, to push forward with open science, because open science became one of the top priorities of research policy of the European Commission, whilst me and my team and my director and so on, we were working there. So the European Open Science Cloud is a very simple idea. It is the cloud idea, but then applied to science. What do we mean by that? Well, there is billions of money being invested publicly in Europe into science, but it is not acceptable. It is not accessible. Why? Because the data are stored on servers anywhere on your laptop, behind closed systems, or even in formats that no one can consult. So the idea of the European Open Science Cloud is to offer an access layer to all the data on all these points of storage. So we keep all our data on our computer in our data center at the university, but we do allow, via a certain protocol, we do allow, and a certain permission, we do allow scientists from around Europe to access this in a way that is understandable, meaning it has to be fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And so it is a huge, open, distributed system for publicly funded research data in Europe. And the main ambition there is, of course, to speed up what we just said about open science in general, allowing all scientists in Europe to have access to all these data, which result from public funding. So that's really important. It is not that we want to steal data. The data are paid for anyhow, but the access is not made available. And that's the big ambition of the European Open Science Cloud.
Well said. But on the other hand, I also wanted to get your perspective that how would you address concerns of researchers who are hesitant to share their own data openly?
Well, I would address them in a way that is, I had many hundreds of presentations of what we wanted to do with it, and this topic came back over and over again. Why would I do it? What's in there for me? Well, then my answer is, well, think carefully. It is win-win. If all scientists in Europe, several millions, do the same as we propose, make their data available, it means that you have an enormous access to a gigantic pool of knowledge. So for you as a scientist, it is a shortcut to finding what has already been done. What can I reuse? Can I add a new dimension? But also, by being part of this open science, and that has been demonstrated, our studies about it, if you make your articles available in open access, the citation index goes up with 2 or 3%. So meaning that your article is 2 or 3 times more quoted than if it will not be open access. So that's good for your career. So it is a win-win approach. You don't give away anything, you win something, because finally, if we are honest about it, most, if not all PhD people or all scientists, that I talk to, and I ask them, how much of your PhD have you reused 10 years later? Almost always the answer is 0. So why not making those data available to you, to someone else, and at the same time you have access to someone else? Because there is, of course, it can only work in reciprocity. And the open science is, I make my data available, you can consult them, but then vice versa should also happen. Otherwise, I give it.
Correct. Well said. Great response. And how can institutions encourage a culture of openness and data sharing amongst their researchers?
Yes, well, first of all, institutions have to realize that open science is a better return on investment. That's really important. It is not an idealistic motive only. It is also making more out of the money that you invest as a ministry, as a university, as a faculty. and you get more science in return. That's really important. So it is not so that do I really have to convince someone that my motives are noble. It's also a very basic economic rationale behind it. This being said, the world of science, as we know, is a world that turns around sticks and carrots. So you cannot only say you have to do it and then disappear. So there should be rewards for people that do engage in making their data and their science available. For example, why not including this in the career evaluation? But, and that funders can do, funders could also demand from now on, we want all the science that we fund that they make their data available in a trusted repository in an open way. If you don't do that, fine, it's your choice, but you don't get the you don't get the grant then. So that's the carrot. So that's a stick, sorry. So an approach should not be mandatory from now on. It is like this. It has to balance what you want to achieve, the better return, with let's support people who do it, and let's discourage people who don't want to do it without punishing, of course.
Well said. And Jean-Claude, what role do you see of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and blockchain in the realm of open science?
Well, I think I do think that the two technologies that you mean are the most important game changer for the world of science since the internet. So I think it is of the same, in particular AI will have the same order of magnitude change that what the internet did when I was a young scientist for how science was organized. So we go to a different modus operandi. So that means that the potential for it is gigantic. Why? Because in a certain sense, all science will become data-driven. Meaning you will need AI to make more sense out of it. So the more data-driven science becomes, the more you make the data available, the more you need AI to make sure that you can make sense out of it. This being said, if you allow me, Ashutosh, is that at the same time, I really do think that the scientific world has to pay very much attention that what could be an enormous potential for open science, AI, blockchain is just I would say a storing procedure, a safe storing procedure, but AI in particular can also kill open science.
Right.
Not the technology, but the companies behind it. What do you see happening? That the big companies developing AI and ChatGPT and so on are more and more having premium agreements with the world of publications, the world of science, to allow them to use the articles and the data to train their models, but that in a premium way, meaning if I, as editor X, I want to have access to the data of your university, I pay you so much for it, but that means someone else cannot do it. So it could also have the opposite effect, or the boomerang effect could be that actually the data will certainly not be open anymore because it is so interesting to monetize it for training purposes for AI companies who have billions of money to pay for it, that I no longer want to share it. So we really have to have a global debate on the fact that scientific data publicly funded are a common property, are a public property, so to speak, because otherwise it might become privatized very quickly.
Right. And the whole concept of open AI, where ChatGPT actually draws so easily upon open data, may become compromised, is what you're saying.
It might become the opposite, because open AI, if the openness is only that I can download it, well, is it open? If open means actually like open source software, that I can change the protocols, that I can change the logic of the software, and that is not the case. And of course, I mean, why are these AI companies so interested in open scientific data? Because these are the best data you can use for training your algorithms.
Correct.
And these are clean data. There is no dirt in it anymore. Yeah. So if I have $1 trillion in my bank to launch my open AI company or to make the next generation, I can easily pay the top scientific institutes in the world to give me premium access to their data, and then it's game over for open science.
Yeah, amazing. So now let's talk a little bit about the Frontiers Planet Prize, Professor, and the planetary challenges. Tell me what motivated the creation of the Frontiers Planet Prize and what do you hope to achieve with it?
Well, the Frontiers Planet Prize is created by the Frontiers Research Foundation, which is a Swiss-based foundation, not for profit, that has a publishing company, but also has this kind of activities. And the people behind the creation of the prize are all the people behind the prize, and the motivation is actually very simple. It's like realizing that the challenges we face in making sure that the planet stays within a safe operating zone from the point of view of climate, biodiversity, ocean acidification, and so on, is so urgent that we don't have the time to think, okay, let's just follow the normal knowledge cycle in science, which is 40, 50 years, and we find a solution. We have to speed it up. The challenges are gigantic. The planet is being pushed into boundaries and over boundaries, which makes it very volatile for stability, which we have known for the last 12,000 years, so to speak. That we must do something in order to come up with solutions to A, if we transgress a boundary, to come back, B, to avoid we transgress a boundary. It's as simple as that. So that sense of urgency, which became clear to us when we read the work of Johan Rockström, who is one of the key leaders scientifically, with thousands of others, of course, on this concept of planetary boundaries. When we started reading that work, we did realize that we must do something. Okay, we are not the Earthshot Prize. We don't have billions to throw around, but we are very good in mobilizing the world of science, because we know that, and we will do our little part of pushing the speed with which the world of science can contribute to finding solutions. That's the deep motivation.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right in what you've said. But my next question is, what are some of the biggest environmental challenges that you hope the Frontiers Planet Prize can address?
Well, I thought about that question because it's actually it is intellectually dishonest to say that I would prioritize A to B, because we have 9 boundaries for the planet and they're all interlinked, and you cannot solve one and say the others are less important. In a certain sense, they're all important, but because this is not a PhD exam, allow me to speculate a bit, and I say, if in my view, but again, I'm not a top planetary scientist. I think that addressing climate change and biodiversity are the 2 biggest of the 9 challenges, are the 2 biggest challenges which deserve most probably most of our attention. So we do hope that by this prize, which is looking around the globe, we have more than almost 600 universities now on board for the best science available. We hope that we can push that kind of direction for finding solutions.
Well said. And my next question for you is, how do you ensure that the awarded projects have a real-world impact on planetary sustainability?
Well, it is baked into the design of the prize, and so the purpose of the prize is to submit on a yearly basis whoever thinks via a selection mechanism, whoever thinks has a solution for these 9 challenges in one way or another, and that all universities from around the world can participate if they want so. Now, the way it is, the criteria of submitting are, on the one hand, scientific excellence. It has to be a peer-reviewed article. And on the other hand, it has to be science that contributes to solutions. So it not in an immediately spin-off type of dimensions, but it must indicate a pathway to a solution. So that means that sui generis, the articles that get nominated by an independent jury of 100 top scientists in this field, It means that sui generis, that those who win or who emerge as the top candidates per year are already addressing the impact, because it's not a prize about which we have designed for the fun of having a new prize. It is a prize which we have designed to have impact. So the having impact, the potential for impact, is cooked into the whole design of the prize.
Mhm. Well said. So I have time for two more questions. How do you see the role of technology evolving in addressing our planetary challenges?
It's in that respect, the second book that inspired us for launching the prize is the book of Bill Gates about how to stop the climate crisis. And that's a whole book about we need to come up with technologies with a green premium, meaning that you can substitute a practice, a dirty practice existing now, with a clean practice in the future. A lot can be done with behavioral change, but it is more than it's lacking at all fronts. We saw it with COVID, and when everyone had to stay at home, CO2 emissions only reduced with 5%. So even if we change our life tomorrow, we will not solve the problems we have, because we need energy, we need steel, we need concrete, and so on. So technologies are crucial, and without new technologies, we will not substitute the dirty practices which we have at all front today. And therefore, the search for the technologies of the future are very important. We simply need to reinvent our industrial world, but from a clean way. And that will not be done by changing behavior only. You can only do it when you have the appropriate technologies.
Very interesting. And my last question to you, Professor Burgelman, how does the Frontiers Planet Prize encourage collaboration between scientists and policymakers?
Well, it's a good question, and we don't do it directly because our prize is geared towards the world of science. We try to bring on board as many universities as we can, as many academies as we can. By the way, we have very good contacts in India as well. But we are not directly targeting the world of policy. Of course, we distribute our results and our networks as much as possible to the world of policy at all possible levels. But we do actually think that well, you cannot do everything with your prize. So we do know that all these scientists and all these academies are very well linked to the world of policy. So we do hope that there is a trickle-down effect from what we do towards the policymakers, because, and your question is very pertinent, the world of policy is essential to make the transition. Why? Because they create a stable pathway. If the policy world, I mean, I say often as a boutade, as I say, if all leaders in the world would decide tomorrow that in 20 years we have a clean world, we will have it. Because then everyone knows this is the way forward. Yeah. We have to stick to it. We can do our massive investments to make the green transition. So policy is a very important partner, and we do hope that via our scientists, we reach the people. Of course, we invite them as much as we can, but there is no, I would say, it's not our first priority.
And on that note, Professor Burgelman, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me. This is the topic that I didn't know much about till I started to read a little bit so that I could have a conversation with you. I think we covered a lot of very interesting ground on the topic of open science, open data. I think I learned many new things from you on that. Thank you also for speaking to me about the Frontiers Planet Prize and all the amazing work that is happening to protect the only planet that all of us have, and that all of us, and it belongs to all of us. And I think I've often said people of my generation, which is the boomers generation, seems to have messed up very badly. And it's the younger generations who are beginning to make a change. And they're the people who will really be able to protect our planet. Thank you so much for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.